A message from our sponsor, Ingram Barge Company. Calling all pilots in the Gulf region. Ingram Barge Company is offering a $5,000 sign-on bonus for pilots interested in liveaboard positions. We offer a variety of schedules including 28 and 14, 20 and 10, and 21 and 21. Applicants must have a Master of Towing Vessels license with Inland and Western Rivers endorsements. Ingram offers a competitive benefits package and 401k with company match. Apply today at www.ingrambarge.com.
I am joined today by a brand new heavy tow pilot on the Lower Miss, Mr. Roman Cail. He has been with Ingram for the majority of his career, but we'll hear more about that as we go. Roman, thank you very much for joining me today.
I appreciate you having me here and get to tell my story.
Yes, sir. Well, the way these begin, tell me, where were you born?
I was born in Rockford, Illinois.
Well, what was life growing up in the 90s in Rockford?
I really can't say a whole lot because we didn't live there but a couple of years. My mom's family's all from up that area, Rockford, Belvedere, DeKalb. We moved to Madisonville, Kentucky when I was 4, I believe, and lived there for a few years until we moved to Cadiz, Kentucky, where I reside now whenever I was 8. So I've been here for over 25 years now.
Any memories from any of the stops along the way? Anything interesting growing up?
My dad, he worked for my grandfather, which was a florist. He owned a chain of flower shops, and he actually drove around a truck. So I remember him being gone a lot, driving the trucks around, state to state, delivering products and selling ribbons and things like that. It's a pretty big thing. And I have a brother that is 6 years older than I am, and it was pretty well me and him growing up together until my sister was born 20 years later.
20-year difference?
20 years difference between my older brother and my younger sister.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what did your mother work?
Yes, she is a physical therapist assistant. She lives here in Cadiz as well, and that's what she does.
Okay. Well, were you drawn to anything in high school, sports, academics, anything like that?
Yeah, I played sports growing up. Everything: baseball, football, basketball, soccer. Soccer was my main sport. I continued with that once I got in high school and played all 4 years. Actually got offered a scholarship to go play at a local college here in Kentucky and ended up joining the National Guard instead. I'm thinking that's what I wanted to do.
Tell me about your National Guard experience from I guess really enlisting to boot camp to your whole time in there.
Well, I actually signed up. A recruiter came in, and I always heard my dad talk about, how he wished he would have served. That's one thing that, he regrets not doing some kind of service. And the recruiter caught me on the right day and came into the school, and I was like, well, maybe that's an option. So I ended up signing up while I was still in high school. It was second semester, my senior year. And I enlisted, and I had the summer off after graduating, and then I was shipped off to Fort Sill, where I was there for basic training and my AIT, my advanced individual training, and I was in the artillery. I was a 13 Fox is what I was, but I did all the time. I think it was 16 or 17 weeks total, all in Oklahoma, and I don't know if anyone listens from Oklahoma, but there wasn't a whole lot there, and it was terrible weather.
Any other interesting memories from that whole period?
I went on a deployment in 2012 to 2013. I went to Djibouti, Africa. I stayed 10 months. It was like 10 or 11 months over there. Just on the base, what they were doing was they're building a new airfield for drones, and Actually, like 70% is a big percentage of drones actually gets flown out of there and gets piloted from controlled in the U.S. But that's where the base is. So we were in charge of security while they were building the air base. But great friends. I've got lifelong brothers from my service that we still get together. We still talk, communicate, and that's the best thing that I got from my experience from the military. That and the benefits being a veteran.
How long were you in?
I was in for 6 years. The way they do it in the Guard is is an 8-year contract. You do 6 years of active service, and that's your weekend duties, your 2 weeks out of the year. If you get called on deployment on that time, and then you do 2 years of inactive service, where I don't have to participate in anything. But if for some reason something big were to happen, they could still call me in. So I got joined in 2009 and got out in 2015. Is whenever I stopped with the service. It was really hard. I was already in the Guard when I started out on the river, and it was difficult because I was having to get off for weekend duty. And whenever I had, if the boat was in New Orleans, I had to be there Saturday, Sunday. Well, I'm having to get off the boat Thursday to drive all the way back to my home in Kentucky, get all my stuff together. That way I can leave Friday to get there for the weekend, Saturday, Sunday. And then if the boat's still down in New Orleans or Baton Rouge, then I'm leaving Monday to travel. So it was very tiring. I was always getting shorted days, or not getting shorted days, but I was always having to make work extra to cover those days that I lost. So when I got the opportunity to, when my service ended, I had to decide whether I was going to be continue in the Guard or if I was going to make towboating my career.
Well, what led you to the river industry?
My stepdad, him and my mom have been together for 20 years, and he actually is retiring here soon. His name's Mike Stewart. He's been on the river for 40 something years. And so growing up, I was always accustomed to him, 1 month on, 1 month home, the different, getting used to that. And I gave, when I got out of the basic training and stuff like that, I gave the old college tries, what they say, and it didn't pan out for me. So I was looking for work. And of course, originally, whenever I started out here, started on the river, I was only going to be there for a few months. I was going to make a little bit of money, get it going, and then I was going to, find something else. And it just stuck to me. But him and my now father-in-law is actually the one that called in the favor at United to get me a job. And so I've got my father-in-law, my stepfather, my brother-in-law, another brother-in-law, and a cousin, and then an uncle that did work out here for 20 something years. So it's definitely in the family.
Well, tell me about deckhand on board again. I guess the first time you stepped on a boat.
The first time I stepped on the boat, I had weekend duty coming up for the Guard, and at United orientation was, I think, 2 days, and a day of it was paperwork and stuff like that. The second day was we went out there and we helped a big boat tow strip 100 something sets of rigging at Carroll McManus, actually. So we didn't have a lot of experience whenever we first get put on a boat at all. Ingram definitely has a better training program leading up for new hires coming in. So I get on a boat. It was I'm pretty sure it was the Sucaso, little fleet tug there in Metropolis, and I was the only man on there. It was the pilot, and then it was me. And I remember starting my first shift. He told me to go ahead and turn him loose, that line loose off the cowl. And I said, what you talking about, the rope? I didn't know what the caval was. I didn't know what the line was. I didn't know what any of it was. So he said, okay. So we went over with some the other tugs that were working, and he said, you just stay with these guys and do whatever they tell you to do. And so that's what I did that first week until I finally got put on a boat. And I jumped on a few boats here and there into my first real regular boat was the B Black, which is now I believe it's the Eleanor McDonald. And that's where I ran into my first regular crew that I was on there for a year and a half, a little less than a year and a half. And my first real mate, Casey Walden, which he works for another company now, but that really took me under his wing and started teaching me, you know, about the river life as far as, you know, throwing lines and making bumpers and laying wires and, you know, talking into locks and things like that. So I got to work with him for a while. And I always think of Casey as the one that kind of got me on my feet starting out.
Well, give me a little rundown of that first job, man.
The first, what now?
Yeah, when you were your first trip on deck, how that whole hitch panned out.
It's towboating is one of them things where you really can't explain it unless you're out there and doing it. So, you know, I talked to my stepdad and stuff like that, kind of about what to expect and friends and things like that. But once you actually get out there, it was January, I believe. And I just remember how cold it was. And the first line haul boat I rode was a Sylvia H. There, my very first full actual trip. And I don't know what it's called now, but I remember going out there and trying to get used to the sleep schedule, being on backwatch, especially, you know, working with the mate and things like that, trying to get sleep when you can, trying to take everything in. I remember the mate said, "You're not going to make it out here," and I believed him. I thought, like, maybe I'm not going to make it out here. But there's a lot of new things. I mean, everything was brand new. It was. I mean, you're walking blindly somewhere and trying to learn and trying to figure everything out. I got quite a few ass jackings, I would say, from the mate and the pilot and captains and stuff like that for being lost, not doing the right thing or doing something backwards. Or I remember we were rolling up sounder cords. Never rolled up a sounder cord before. It was a cord, but I started looping it around in my hand, going. And I get, I don't know, probably 200 foot back from the head, and the mate comes over there and he's like, "Are you tying up your cords or whatever?" And I'm holding about 600 foot of cord where I didn't unplug it. So it was just all tangled up, and it took me about 2 hours for me to untangle all that cord where I had it all stacked on top of each other. And I remember him, man, he got into me pretty good on that one.
I bet you didn't screw it up again then, huh?
No, never have. I still actually tell that story to people, deck crew get on the boat, because I know what it's like, and I know people can get really frustrated, with new hires and new people. But I really remember what it's like coming to this job for the first time and having absolutely no idea what's going on.
So you said about a year and a half with United, and then Ingram acquired them?
Yes. It was actually pretty crazy, because I deployed in August or September of 2012, and we found out about the buyout like at the midsummer, early summer of 2012. So they had Ingram came to Metropolis and wanted to get all the United employees coming in there and kind of give them an introduction of, hey, this is it, you don't have to fear for your job, so a pep talk. And so I was trying to get my stuff together for my deployment as well. So I'm telling them, hey, I need this paperwork, filled out. That way, whenever I get back, I have a job. Well, Ingram says, well, we hadn't technically bought y'all yet. You need to talk to United. So I go talk to the people at United. Well, we're not going to be United whenever you get back. You need to go talk to Ingram. So I was kind of going back and forth. So it was a crazy time. So when I actually got back from the deployment and went to Ingram's office for the first time after when I was taking my leave off, I'm introducing myself to some people. They're like, we wondered if you were a real person or not, because they've seen my name on paper and everything, but I've been non-existent. But once I got back, they fired me right up, told me, hey, you can catch a boat whenever you're ready, and got me to working pretty quick. I actually lost a week of leave because I came back a little early, get back in the swing.
Were you a Titans fan before you went to Nashville?
I have been a Titans fan since my one of my good buddies' parents have season tickets, and which I've got season tickets now, but they took me to a game when I was, I don't know, maybe 11 or 12. And I was always a Bears fan just because that's what my family, is Bears fans, Cubs fans, which I still am a Cubs fan. But I went to that first game and I never looked back. I love the Titans. My kids, my son, he changes teams every other day, whoever's good, but my daughter's loyal, my wife's loyal. We're definitely a Titans fan household.
Yeah, I was following them when it was Steve McNair and Eddie George, like when they first came into existence back then. But I kind of fell out of favor. I'm from New Orleans, so of course the Saints, and then they won that Super Bowl. But whatever the case, walk me through your career, I guess, up until you got into the Steersman program.
Let's see. All right, so I get back from deployment in 2013. I meet and greet everybody, talk to everybody. They say, you're going to go catch the Donna Griffin. And this was July. I said, okay, Donna Griffin. That was in 2013. And to this day, I'm still on that boat. Few name changes. But I went over there as a senior deckhand. See, it was me and then two other buddies that I still talk to now. One of them's actually turned loose as well. Chad Brewer on the Martha Lynn, and another one's about to get turned loose here soon, I believe. So Kalen King, he's in the Steersman program right now. But it was us three deckhands, and Bobby Conyers was the captain. And I rode with Bobby for 5 years, but I went over there as a senior deckhand, and I worked my way up to lead man, and then senior lead man. And back then in Ingram, you didn't have to have an actual spot open to get moved up to lead man and senior lead man. It was second mates before you actually had to have a spot. So it was me and Chad, and then Kalen left. But Chad and me kind of always moved up. He was always about a year ahead of me. So when he got his senior lead man, I got my lead man. When he got his second mate, I got my senior lead man. When he got mate, we rode together for 5 years. And great crew. We had a really good crew. Few people here and there. The mate was Don Powell. He finally retired a couple years ago. He was out on the river for 30 something years. And the chief is Billy Joe Compton. He actually just went to a smaller boat to try to finish out, the rest of his time on the river. But he was actually on that boat for 30 something years. Same boat. So I'm a little behind him as far as time goes. But as the years went by, we ended up, Captain Bobby wanted to switch rotations to get on schedule with his son. So he switched over to the other crew, and Billy Watkins, which is my captain now and is also my father-in-law, came to the boat. At the time, we were not officially related at the time when he came over. But once he came over, I rode a couple more trips as second mate, and Chad Brewer actually got put in the Steersman program. And I moved up to mate for a little while over there till I got in the program. And whenever I got in, I asked Captain Billy if he would steer me, and he said he would. So that's who I I've been riding with the last 5 years, I think, 4 years maybe.
I'm actually, when I interviewed Captain Beaver, he recommended or mentioned Billy Watkins, and it's interesting, the small world here. But I'm trying to get Billy lined up for this podcast as well. Have you, aside from your stint at Metropolis, have you always been on the Lower Miss?
No, I did that time when I was on the B Black a year or so. They were in the Illinois River, and we would run. Usually, we'd sometimes come down to Metropolis, but normally a lot of times it was St. Louis up to all the way up to Lockport and all that. I did that, and then, but once I got back from my deployment and got back down to Griffin, which is the Frank Johnson now, I've been on the lower ever since. So it's been 10 years I've been in the lower.
What did you think about the Illinois?
I liked it. I liked, and even as I was decking, tripping, if I could trip, I would always ask to go on a locking river. Just a different set of scenery. Two, just it makes the watches go by faster to me. You got a double lock here, you got a couple locks in one watch. It makes the time go by fast, which makes the trip go by fast. Smaller toe sizes. It's a lot less work to an extent, but the lower you also might have 5 or 6 days of running and nothing at all. But when it's time to work, it's time to work. So I enjoyed it. But I actually did. I finally was able to get a boat tripping. I was finally to go on the upper Mississippi, and never been up there. Always wanted to go, but they usually have the more locking people, that are used to doing locks and stop and cuts and stuff like that. Well, I finally got some work up there. They needed somebody, and it was beautiful up there. We actually went. I caught the boat at La Crosse, and I got off the boat at St. Paul, so I got to see some of the cooler things. And I remember I was talking to somebody. I seen they were breaking up ice and stuff there at Lake Pippin, and I was in the lower deck room, and I didn't know nothing, about it. And I'm in there sleeping, and I wake up because I hear, and I'm like, holy cow! I said, so this ain't right. Something's happened. I look outside, and you can see, huge sheets of ice. We're just ramping through. I'm like, what the heck, And everybody else is like, that's just normal. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, a heads up would have been nice, but.
What's the prettiest place you run? Your favorite place to be?
The upper was awesome. The scenery was. I try to explain to my wife the way it feels cozy up there, like the towns and stuff like that. But I'm a lower guy. It's a lot of sandbars and things like that. But New Orleans now is not so much fun running it, but coming around Algiers Point, and especially at night, seeing the city, all the lights and everything, you can't beat that spot right there.
Yeah, I've never been north of Baton Rouge. I rode, I'm just shoreside, but I rode from Convent to Myrtle Grove and then back up, hopped off at Dockside right there around Algiers Point. I've been around Algiers Point a few times. Yeah, tell me about your experience in the Steersman program.
It takes a lot. I want to start by saying it, even being a deckhand or anything, you just see somebody sitting in a chair. That's what I thought. It's like, you're paying this man this kind of money. He just sits in the chairs and looks outside, looks at a little radar thing, and that's it. Like, that's what you got to do. My first trip steering, which I steered with my father-in-law, Captain Billy Watkins. I honestly couldn't even tell you a single thing I did or learned that trip, just because it was an overload of everything's new. Again, we're back to absolutely being oblivious to, well, why are we doing this, or what does it matter if it's swinging this way, or what's it matter? Everything. The radars. Well, the buoys. I don't need to. Everything is just so, it's so overwhelming. It took me about 3 trips before I really started getting my feet and getting understanding some of the concepts. But I was lucky. I got in right after the couple years of high water. Whenever I started steering, it got just to the very end of it. So they started getting buoys and stuff in. They finally started running buoys again. So I had a lot more of actually learning, because I steered for probably a year on my off time. Before I actually got in the program, I went and got my license, and he would let me steer on my off watch. So I'd get up, early, or lose a couple hours of sleep. And, a lot of that was during that high water where you just take everything you want everywhere. There was no real concept of, looking at buoys, or, keeping an eye on your sounder, or grabbing too much, or, like that. So whenever I actually got in and was able to go, I had buoys. Captain Billy's, he is a great wheelman. He did a really good job teaching me. Don't get me wrong, if I messed up, he let me know. But if I did something good, he let me know as well. But it's and it's tough. Anybody that's steered or has steered somebody, you got to understand that, you're with somebody, 28 days, 12 hours a day, in a box. And so you get close, and then, people have bad days, people have good days. It's it takes a special person to be able to stand behind you and teach somebody how to navigate up and down the river. So kudos to that, and I hope one day that I'm able to give a bunch of people back what I was given. But I ended up steering for I think a year and 4 months, and my operations manager, Kenny Underhill, called me, and it was my birthday. Actually, we were getting off the boat, and he said, hey, run something by you. Or was talking to Billy, he had him on speaker. He's like, are you ready? And I said, well, I don't know, Billy. It's like, oh, he's ready. He can do it. He can do it. And the pilot that was on there at the time, Robert Nelson, I'll give him a shout out, because I rode with him for 7 years. And he's a great wheelman too, and a good friend. He said, hey, I need Robert to go somewhere else. If you think you're ready, we'll put you on that boat with Billy next trip. And I said, well, here's my concerns. I hadn't seen this, or, I gave him my things, and he told me, he said, that's the only thing that's holding you back. He said, if Billy's willing to work with you, as you're getting, settled in, he said, we'll let you go. And I looked at Billy, because at that point, you're never really ready. And he said, you're ready. So I caught the boat next trip and been turned loose just over a year now.
What's your normal run? Do y'all turn at Cairo or Columbus?
Right there below Columbus. Yeah,
Yeah.
Columbus. And normally no farther than Triangle. We've went down to turn services a few times, but I'm not really posted down there. So if we have, it's been, a couple barges down, and then I'll take a full tow north. But most of the time we usually turn at a Triangle.
Down in the hole, you mean, Myrtle Grove?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned, I've not been above Baton Rouge. Walk me through a trip, either from the deck perspective or the wheelhouse, from Columbus all the way down.
Well, the first step is getting on top of that tow. Downstream and on top of the tow. That's the.
Speaking of which, how many barges do you normally push?
We are a 40 barge boat. If the river is able, so it's going to depend on river conditions and things like that. But if we're able to take 40, they're going to put 40 on us.
Right. All right. Sorry. So you're getting behind a toe up in Columbus.
Yeah, getting on top of a toe in Columbus. That's the first thing. Downstreaming is not. Uh, yeah, downstream is it's a tough thing to learn because you. That's the thing with all being on the lower, and that's one thing training on the lower is you might only downstream twice a trip, where you've got other boats, other rivers, Ohio, Illinois, upper that they might get face up and unface 15, 20 times in one trip. So um, not being able to get to do it because you might catch it twice a trip. Well, you might only catch it on the captain's watch, and the pilot, might not want to let you do it, which I understand because I couldn't let somebody do it. So that was one of my concerns whenever I was talking about getting turned loose, just because it's the most dangerous thing maneuver you can do on the river to me. But Billy got up with me my first few times that I did catch it, and now I'm getting on top of them on my own. But once you get on top of it, we're taking off. It's it's really important, and that's one thing Billy's really taught me is to not just drive, to actually learn the river. So we keep up with all of our river stages, how much water, especially northbound. We've got our own virtual buoys that we can put in ourselves. So if there's not a buoy there, or if we know there's water behind the actual buoy and we cut in behind it, boom, we'll put a buoy there. Hey, we know there's water there southbound. So if we're coming around there, I know that I can, run behind that one, or I can cheat on this one, and it makes going up and down the river so much better because we're not just driving. I mean, we're actually trying to figure things out, to learn, to see what we've got, to make things easier on us. So we both do it. So it helps us both, with both guys doing it, getting out of Columbus. There's Island 8, which is the tightest spot on the lower Mississippi River. I back up there every time. I flank it. A lot of people do. Some people steer it. Billy likes to steer it. And I actually was only trained to steer it. That's kind of what we did whenever I trained with him. But that's usually just to get me a feel of what the toe's doing. Is it swinging good? Is it back? Is it going back? Things like that. And then it's pretty decent stretch down until you get down to Fork of Deer, which is right there below Blyville and above Blyville and right there above Osceola. That again is a spot that I always back up. I don't mess around with. And you get busy with that, and then Craighead and Randolph will be your next turns below Osceola. So you wake up there around Blyville, or you're gonna have a pretty busy watch southbound. And then you got the Memphis Bridges, which for some reason I seem to catch about every trip since I've been turned loose. They say, which everybody's different. I can only go from my experience, but when I got turned loose that first time getting to Columbus to head south, I'm in my head, I'm like, if we leave at this time, I'm going to catch this. I'm going to catch this. Well, I'm going to catch the bridge. I've already got the whole southbound trip mounted in my head, because it's my first time by myself without, hey, this look good to you, But making it through Memphis, and then you got the Wiggles down there below Memphis. You got the 600s, what they call it, the Wiggles. And it can be pretty vicious, good stretch between Helena Bridge. Below Helena, you got Kangaroo, Old Town, Huey, Wood Cottage, Masons, Laconia, and Victoria. All on that good, it's about 110 mile stretch of all that. And once you get through there, you got Vicksburg Bridge to contend with, and that one it that one is it's one that I seem to always catch too. But once you get down below Vicksburg, the river wide, it gets a little bit wider. Of course, depending on the river stages, but it slackens off a little bit. And it's pretty decent stretch all the way down to, you get right there around Baton Rouge. You got Thomas Point and then Wilkerson Point, the bridge. And then once you flip over from 13 to 67, it's going to be nothing but earfuls and radios on both sides.
Is Wilkerson Point and that old I-10 bridge, or excuse me, the old 190 bridge, is that the toughest one to make?
Everybody's got their own opinions. To me, Memphis bridges with 40 barges is my least favorite to do, just because it always looks bad, where they got that economy boat store right there below the lower bridge. With 40, to me, in my opinion, that I hate that one the most.
And you're what? You're eight long, five wide?
No, southbound we are 5 wide. No, we're 8 wide, 5 long. South.
Okay. Well, then how wide is that Memphis bridge?
I don't know. I'm not sure on that. I have to look that one up. It's not getting through the bridge itself. It's, of course, they make every bridge is in a turn. It's in a bend. They can't just have a straight bridge. But once you get the bridge cleared, you have to hold the pier, because you're making a turn. And as you're making that turn, you're creating a slide, and you've already got current going that way. Well, right, maybe 300 foot or so below the lower bridge is the economy boat store, where they've got tugs and fuel flats and stuff that stick out. So as you're making your turn and you're steering, that's where everything's going. So it always looks bad, but that's just how it is there. It's a wonder that place hasn't been taken out on a regular, but I mean, it's just there, and people get around it all, every day.
Roger that. Well, tell me a little bit about I guess what you think about Ingram.
Oh, it's great. I remember at United, it was, a lot of places they talk about safety, and they stick a safety sticker on the door that says "Be safe," and okay, that's the end of it. United, we would be, climbing up wires, jumping down from empty to loads, doing whatever we had to do to get the job done. In an efficient time, it was always go. I get to Ingram. I remember the first trip, we were packing something, and they're like, "Oh no, we'll do 2 trips." I'm like, "Well, I got 2 hands." They're like, "No, you don't have to." I'm like, "Well, I can do." They're like, "Listen, we don't want you to get hurt. You don't have to do that." I was like, okay, it opened my eyes, and that's what I seen that the culture was like. Ingram's not just slapping a safety sticker and saying, "Good job, guys, we're safe." They've got all these policies and procedures because something's happened. There's a reason why that's there. They follow that. And if you don't follow that, then there could be punishment for not following it, because they're set there for us to keep us safe. And I did a lot of new hire training whenever I was a second mate and stuff like that. And the way they do training, week long, they actually have like a training barge. Like it's a top-notch facility. Everybody I've worked with around the office, operations, dispatchers, we got one of the best dispatchers, the best dispatcher I've ever had. And just the environment, it's friendly. It does feel like home. And that's one of my favorite parts of the job too, is there for a while. You get a crew, me and the cook, we've rode together for 10 years now. I've spent as much time with him in 10 years than I have, my family at home. And, we're friends. Engineers, people you meet out here, you talk to, you meet, people. There's people that I talk to on the radio that I've never met before or never seen, but we talk, all the time. It's just the industry itself, there can be some bad apples, but as far as everybody's working together, everybody's, it's a friendly place to be.
Takes a village to make all this work.
Yeah.
Well, switch topics now. Tell me about your family. How long have you been married?
We've been married for 3 years. We've been together for 12 years. I've got a 14-year-old girl. She'll be 15 in July. And I've got a 8-year-old boy that'll be 9 in October. My wife, she works at a health department. She's a RN, registered nurse. And my kids, my son, he's into any sport possible. That's his thing. He just likes being outside. And my daughter, she's a freshman. She plays soccer as well, and she loves Taylor Swift.
Do you think, I know he's only 8, you said, or 9, but do you think any signal that he'll follow you into the?
I don't know. At this point, I don't know. Whatever makes him happy. I'm happy with whatever makes them happy. So if they do, then I can help lead them down that road and help as much as I can. But if not, then whatever makes them happy.
That'll just about do it for my questions, man. You have anything else to share about the industry in general?
Which, if you ever talk to Billy, he'll tell you. He said towboating is the only job that people work harder. How does he say it? Towboating's the only job that people work harder for and not make any more money. I think that's what he said. It's a thing where we like making miles. We like running. We don't, if we don't have to wait, we'll try to make jumps. We'll try to, if we know there's water to run behind some of these places, we'll do it. And we're not getting paid any extra for it, but it's one thing it's fun. Makes time go by faster. We want Ingram to succeed. We want industries to succeed. We love learning the river.
I think that'll do it, Roman. I do appreciate your time this afternoon.
All right, I appreciate you.